Africa, it is now morning, and good afternoon for people that are joining us from outside our region. I want to welcome you to this webinar, but just as a way of introduction, my name is Nicanor Sabula, and I'll be your moderator for the day. Thank you very much for signing up and joining this first webinar hosted by AESATA. For those that are wondering what AESATA is, that is the Association of Eastern and Southern Africa Travel Agents, which is our regional body that brings together travel agents from across our region. Currently, we've got about 13 countries that make AESATA. So allow me to very quickly introduce you to the webinar today, and we are very grateful to have our speakers for this session online with us, all of them. We've got Dr. Joseph Kithitu, who is the chairman of CATA, who is here with us. We've got Captain Gilbert Kibe, who is not new to many of us. He's been with us for a very long time. He's a regular in this webinar series. We also have got Iman Duri, who is a vice chairperson of the Ethiopian Association of Travel Agents. And then another very familiar face and voice, Dr. Aaron Muneti, who is from the South African Airline Association. So there we are. So we have all the speakers online. It is definitely going to be an exciting webinar this morning. And our theme of discussion today is removing the friction that slows travel in our region. And what a time to be discussing this, of course, with everything that is happening across, the region with the Middle East war in Iran. So we want to see what are some of the opportunities that as Africa we can, leverage for us in our industry. Now, some of you may ask, why are we choosing this theme? For those that don't know, this year when we have our annual conference, our theme for that particular conference is Africa in Motion. How do we keep Africa moving? And therefore, as we move towards that particular conference, we wanted to have some preamble discussions that will lead us to that particular conference. And the issue is that the key issue is that how removing these frictions as Africa, as we set Africa in motion. So allow me just very briefly, as a way of introduction, to put context onto what are some of these frictions that we are looking at. And I will look at three frictions that affect the region, but comfortably we can say that these are the frictions that actually afflict the region. Number one is restrictive and inconsistent visa regimes. How do we move people around? Now, a bit of statistics. Currently, only about 27% of African countries offer visa-free travel to other Africans. Less than a third of the countries on the continent, you will arrive and they will give you a visa. Now, out of these 55 countries or 54 countries we have on the continent, half of them to be able to visit those countries. What does that mean to an African traveler? it means that there are hurdles. You know, you cannot just wake up and say, I want to go to holiday in the Congo, and you arrive in the Congo. I'm just giving that as an example. You really have to plan for that. Compare that to other regions. Look at Southeast Asia, how movement within that region is visa-free. Look at the EU, visa-free. You know, from in the EU, you can wake up in the morning in Brussels and spend the next day in Paris with ease. For us in travel, as travel agents, this means that there's uncertainty in planning. You know, those spontaneous movements, you cannot do that on the continent. And as people become mobile, as some people, you know, become financially, you know, stable, and you just want to think about and imagine a holiday and move, that you cannot do in Africa. It also means that we have lost bookings because people then are putting that energy elsewhere. It also means that there is reduced competitiveness of African destinations. Now, our role as AESATA is to be able to promote intra-Africa travel. How do we promote intra-Africa travel when movement on the continent still remains a hurdle? So that is friction number one. And therefore, the question we should be asking ourselves is, if movement is a foundation of tourism, can Africa truly compete globally while its own citizens struggle to move within it? How then are we going to achieve intra-Africa travel if our own people cannot be able to move across the continent? I mean, and again, these are things that we all know. Issue number two is the issue about high fares, and what contributes to that, of course, is the taxes, fees, and just limited connectivity on the continent. And we've spoken about this broadly. It's a pet subject for Aaron Munetsi and Captain Kibe. They keep talking about this. But again, just a few statistics that we'll look at. Studies show that taxes, charges can make up to 30 to 50%. Aaron tells us this story very well of an African air ticket. In some cases, and you all know, if you travel, sometimes it's cheaper, to travel to Europe than within the continent. So that's a friction that we really have to do. And the question of limited direct routes that force passengers into multi-stop journeys, and therefore increasing costs, both in terms of the time it takes, but also the actual cost of the ticket. And I don't know how many of you recall a recent story or a controversy of these Congolese that were attending a conference in Livingstone, Zambia. And it took them actually almost 2 days, to leave Livingstone to get back into their country, Congo. Why? Because they are transiting through Addis. So they to leave Livingstone into Addis, have a long overlay before they will connect back to the Congo. And yet Zambia and Congo actually share a border. What a shame. So we really need to look at that. And therefore the question then we'll be asking ourselves is, if connectivity drives commerce, are we pricing ourselves as a continent out of our own market because we cannot trade out to ourselves, and connectivity remains an issue? The third thing that then we need to look at is the reality around some of the regulatory misalignments, or rather what the policymakers want and what the market reality is. And of course, we all know about SATIM, we all know about AfCFTA, very, very, very noble, policy pronouncements that our leaders have made. But what is the reality on the ground, right? 30% countries have already signed signed up to SATM, and Captain Kibe will speak to this in terms of full operationalization. But there is still issues of connectivity. We still find that countries are still, very restrictive, very protective of their markets. We still have very high fares. Access still remains our biggest problem. Then the question we ask ourselves is, if these policy promises are just a mere PR, or are we really serious about this, right? So why do we still feel like our markets are closed if we have SATM in place, we have AfCFTA in place? Very, very noble initiatives that have failed to unlock Africa's potential in terms of accessibility. And of course, we've spoken about the issue about visas. We've spoken the issue about cross-border movement of people and persons. We are aware about the hindrances of airline operations, whereas there are still connectivity, and bilateral agreements that have been signed between countries for point-to-point connection. We still find that airlines are struggling to get access to certain markets. Frequencies and routes are still restricted. Countries are still restricting this, and therefore, national interests still override our regional goals of connecting the continent. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we are having this webinar this morning. All right, and we want to be able to see how do we bridge this gap in terms of our conversations, in terms of our engagements. What is the role we want to play as AESATA to ensure that we are bridging these gaps and to ensure that the promises that are made at policy levels actually find their way into the market. So that is just setting the context in terms of what we want to be looking at, and how we have set up this webinar is that we'll have a few presentation. We'll also have a dialogue. Please, if you haven't joined, there is a slide. On your screen, there's Slido. Join that Slido. There's a question there, and the question that we are asking on the poll is: what is the biggest barrier to the travel today? What is the biggest trouble to travel today? Where you sit? Okay, just engage with us, and we'll be coming back to see what that poll looks like. But allow me as a start to just invite Dr. Joseph Kithitu, who is with us. He's going to open for us the first presentation, and he's looking at visa policies, free movement, and the future of intra-Africa travel. But please engage with us on that poll, so that we can also get your sentiments. We get your sentiments on what you think. At this point, let me ask Dr. Kithitu to come on. I don't know whether he's controlling his presentation. You have.
Thank you.
Presentation. Very good, Dr.
Thank you, members, for AESATA joining. This is quite a noble process that we want to fix our region, we want to fix our continent in terms of travel. It's high time we start talking about these things, and it's high time that now we are speaking about them, because many times they have been left into forums that we are not involved, but high time that we are getting involved because we are stakeholders in the industry of travel. So I'm going to be talking through around some very interesting point about visa policies, free movement, and the future of intra-Africa travel. Remember, the potential and the future growth of air travel is within Africa. There is a big population that has not tested plane. There's a big population, only 2%, probably growing 2.5%, that have tested plane. And I keep on saying, asking your villagers how they have traveled. They have not, they really see the plane as just a luxurious thing. But this is the narrative that we want to move and have air as means of transport, just a conveyance like we do have another transport system. So let's move on to the next one, please. And then we will be looking at the gap between policy commitment and the implementation. That is the gap. It's a policy and implementation. Next. Now that I am not controlling the slides, when I say next, you'll be moving. So this is the outlook. You can see on your right, depending on where you are seated, this is the map of Africa that needs a lot of connectivity. If you connect this one, we have an ecosystem. We have a business, we have a commerce, we have a space that we can all live in terms of trade. And we're looking at across Africa, governments and regional bodies, including the AUs, RSCs, basically the COAS, the IGAD, and the like. They have expressed strong willing and a strong political commitment for free movement. So there is a great desire to have free movement within Africa on its own for integration and development. There is a strong political commitment. There is continental framework. We talk about AU as a free movement protocol. Basically, and in the year 2063, there is a clear AfCFTA, which is African Free Continental Trade Area, envisions unrestricted movement of Africa, that I can move to another African country. I remember I've got 3 countries that I'm supposed to be traveling the next 2 months, and I've not even visualized whether I will need a visa. Probably when I get look, I'll find I need a visa there, I don't need a visa there, and all that. But should be just going to the airport and flying to another country and moving on. That is what we envision envisioned within 2063. The reality lags behind policy. So there is an issue around the policy and the commitment. There's a limited mobility continues. The limited mobility continues to constrain economy. Our economies are not growing because of the limited mobility. Visa openness data shows a wide gap. There's a wide gap around that. Move next. I want us just to internalize, visualize, and look. Here we're looking at policy commitment. What has Africa promised? AU and FTB advocates for borderless Africa. We're talking about visa openness index. We're talking about free movement, seen as essential for expanding markets and boosting intra-African trade. We have enough market, we have enough people that we can basically trade amongst ourselves. And the minute we remove those bottlenecks, we'll be respected like EUs, we'll be respected like another markets, because we'll be able to demonstrate clearly we can operate and survive amongst ourselves. There's a framework that requires a strong political commitment. Its implementation remains uneven. Basically, we have all this, but what does Africa promise? There is an implementation uneven. We talk about this, but the implementation is uneven. Next. Now, today's reality. If you look at your right on your screen, look at that map. It's really convoluted. It's very dark. The passports are being stamped all over, everywhere. And you know, when you look at each other, we look the same. We can almost understand each other, but we are being treated like, who are you? And look at all these terms that I want us to acquire as it's moving within Africa. And yet it is moving to our brothers and sisters in different continents. The reality is today is that visa barriers persist, with 47 of intra-African travel still requiring pre-departure visas. You can imagine. To get to a particular country, you have to go to an embassy, and that embassy probably has no e-visa. You have to queue, you have to do a lot of things. You know, they'll ask you bank statements for the last 6 months. They'll ask you whether you have $1 million. I don't know whether. What for? You don't need all those things. Stagnation and regression. Again, these are areas we are facing. We have 29 countries that have recorded no progress in terms of openness, and 8 have declined. We have slow adoption of AU framework, which is the AU framework about free movement. Security and the political constraints is still another issue that is affecting us today. And even regional implementations. ECOWAS has really shown good. You can move within the ECOWAS like a brother. You just move. In fact, even the currency moves around. But when you go to other areas about the IGADs, about the other regions, COMESAs, we tend to find there's a lot of stagnation in that kind of space. And these are the discussions we are talking about. EVs are not translating into openness. You still find the country is an e-visa country, but you're still having some challenges. You're getting stuck at the airport, asked questions, some here and there. There's no freeness, and as a result, you're not able to leave your country and just jump into another country. So we are not enjoying, we are not patronizing the economy, we are not getting to enjoy our country, our continent as it ought to be. Next, that is today's reality. Please press it. Next time, I think I'll control the mouse to press. Okay. Successful implementers. So there are again some cases we need to look at. Countries including Kenya, Rwanda, Benin, the Gambia, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, and Angola demonstrates meaningful visa liberalization. Kenya, Rwanda, Benin, and Seychelles operate open-door, visa-free policies for African travelers. That's a good thing. Sierra Leone records a 62% increase in visa openness in 2024. And I tell you, members here, it's very interesting that if today you want to travel to another country and you just get to an airport with your passport and you go to the other side and you go in, it makes it very easy. But reciprocity is not happening. You don't see reciprocity. Now, for example, just speaking where I sit, I'm from Kenya, this first point, and there are countries that are free to come in, but when you go to the other side, they're asking you for visa. So you wonder, what is this? Those are some of the things that are really, the policy implementation is not aligned. There's no alignment to that. Go next. Now, less successful implementers. 50% of African countries still require visa for most African travelers. This is persist for more endorsement of the AfCFTA, which is the African Free Continental Trade Area, and the free movement principles, highlighting the implementation gap. This is the gap. And we should learn. We are in a state that we should learn. We have seen what has happened in the Middle East. We have to operate like blocks. If Africa operates as a block and people are allowed to have a free movement, free trade, you can move your goods, you can commercialize, you can travel, then we will be an economic hub. There's nothing different. What EUs have done is basically made them as a one hub, and they have allowed free movement, and they're able to trade. And that's what we find the Middle East were having the same environment. So we really need to be awakening core. And AESATA is in that space of looking at different countries' trade and be able to see how we open these borders. Go next. Next slide. Yes, this is, we are looking at why the implementation gap persists. Because it's a gap. We are ready, the governments, the policies are all aligned, but the implementation, there's a gap. One of it is around national security concern. There's still a concern that we allow terrorists into our countries. We allow people thinking evil into our countries. But there should be measures to clean up that process. Dependency on visa revenues. We still see visa as a revenue. That in the economics, it doesn't make logic if you're going to get $100 and lose $2,000 on economics of business. That logic doesn't work. So depending on visa as a revenue is really just putting a cart before the horse. Limited administrative capacity. Again, there are no proper administratives around free movement. The infrastructure and the systems are not set for visa-free and visa on arrival regimes. That becomes a challenge. There are countries that when you get visa on arrival and you land with a big aircraft, you guarantee yourself for 2 hours to stay at the airport before you get a stamp. That shouldn't be. Are we closing the gap? What must be done to accelerate ratifications, to make sure that there's free movement, aligning immigration policies, to make sure that policies are not going to ask you, where are you coming from? Where are you going? What is happening? Those things are just need to be aligned that you can be able to have a free movement. Invest in a smarter border management system. It's all around border management systems. If you're a criminal from one country, you can be picked from the other by the proper border management systems. But not to ask you by questions by look, your face, do you look gloomy? Do you look like you have an evil intention? Strengthen RSC levels with basically the regional economic communities. We need to trust each other. We need to have that openness. ECOWAS has worked out. The Zambia, Malawi, the Zimbabwe, South Africans, they are quite, in fact, they treat themselves as alike. But when it comes just a bit of commerce here, IGAD, AC, we tend to, to start putting that differentiation. That affects our ability to move. Move next. Our next slide, please. Now, the impact of visa regimes on tourism and business travel. These kind of things we are discussing, openness, free movement. What is the impact on tourism and travel? It's very key for us. We're talking about visa regimes influencing influence tourism across Africa. Because when you have a visa policy that is open, it allows for business mobility, trade, investment, and overall competitiveness of African destination. You're able to invest, you can trade, you can move. Restrictive visa policies depress tourism. That is a reality. And some of us will sit in different levels of the government in your countries. Please make this clear. Visa restriction measures depress tourism. And that will affect your economy, will affect the hotel capacity, will affect employment, will affect earnings, will affect generally GDP. That is the big thing about it. Liberal visa policies drive growth. Just open a visa. We have seen Rwanda did a visa on arrival for all African countries. Conference tourism, hospitality revenues have gone up. Global events hostings. So Uganda visa waivers for 40 countries. We expect to be a growth in that sector. So this guy is it's just a no-brainer. These are hanging fruits. Open up your country, allow it to be free movement, economy starts to pick, tourism starts to grow. And this growth of tourism is around hospitality, ground movement, about patronizing the restaurants, the pubs, the natural sites. It's quite an economy on its own. The aircraft movement. This is the space that we want ourselves to find in. Next. Next, please. Well, I'm just on my last two slides, and I'll be done with this. And basically, what are we saying? How government can accelerate mobility under continental framework? Because we need this to be done. Please move next. And I'm not going to take a lot of time. I think I have two slides remaining, but we are good to go. Now, we are talking about implement the AU free movement protocols, fast track applications, harmonize immigration laws, develop national implementation plans, intra-visa free, visa on arrivals, prioritize mobility for business travelers, investors, trade and SMEs, event and conference participants. I still remember I traveled to an African country and I was told if you say you're coming for business, you'll have to pay. So say you're a tourist. That shocked me. I was going for a conference. Now I was told to cheat. Look at that. Yet I should be able to say I'm coming for a business traveler, I'm an investor, I'm a trade and SME, I'm an event and a conference, and I'm told come in. But not when I spin to that and start getting attraction to pay some $100 visa fees. So basically, those are areas that we want those to be highly, highly prioritized for us to have this Africa. Look at this map of Africa. It's full of people. It's full of economy. It's full of business. This is the trade that we should get ourselves into. Next. Next slide, which is the last slide. Basically, in conclusion, to accelerate mobility across Africa under continental framework, governments must ratify implementation of the AU free movement, align immigration policies with expand visa-free and visa on arrival regimes, modernize e-visa systems, strengthen the RSCs, the ECOWAS, the SADC, the COMESAs, the IGAs, the ESCs, invest in border management, monitor the progress and effort, enforce reciprocity. Reciprocity is key. If you're coming here, visa free, why should I pay visa on arrival on your place? The other way around. It should be just reciprocity. Build political will using economic impact data. It's very, very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the areas we need to look at. AESATA needs to move from a country perspective to Africa perspective. And we start looking at why are we not doing business? Why are we not traveling? Today, if I want to travel, I don't need to ask so many things. Do you have a visa? No. Which is the best hotel? Which beach? How is it? And I can fly there if I can afford. That will make the airfares become cheaper because of economies of scale. There will be more people traveling, and we will be able to have airfares coming down because of the load factors of the aircraft. And that's what we want to see. I keep on saying, whenever I step into US, really a bit of UK, the planes you see are not the planes we have here. The planes there are long pipes, and they are conduit for just conveyor belts. You miss a flight, they ask which is next. That should be what African should be. But today, if you want to go to an African country, it takes a whole day. I still remember I flew from Zimbabwe to Kenya, and it took a whole night. I started my trip from 8 p.m. and I got in Nairobi at 7 a.m. Look at that. Where I wasted my time, I can't explain. In the airport, in the landing in Zambia, coming to Kenya. But you know, it should be like a 2-hour flight. But I took it from 8 p.m. I landed in Kenya 7 a.m. That makes it a whole day travel. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the areas that we need to continue speaking to our governments. We need to advocate in our various forums so that we can make this cake big and better for us. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. I think you You've nailed it. I can see there's a lot of claps. If you were in a room, you will have gotten a standing ovation because you've pointed practically to the things that we struggle with. Me and you see these things, we experience them. Why can't we do them? Just hold on. I know you will have you just for a few minutes, and if people have questions, please feel free to put those questions on the chat. We are still continuing. We want to get your feedback. If you've joined us, go to slido.com on your phone, put in that number, you will find that poll. Please participate in the poll. We want to hear you so that we can also put our finger on exactly what we need to do as a matter of priority. Allow me to very quickly go to our next speaker, whom Dr. Kiditu's presentation must have been music to his ears because his preach talks about this every day. But perhaps I suspect he will every year we talk about it. Aaron Munetsi is our next speaker, and Aaron is well known on the continent. He's a very strong advocate for intra-Africa travel, air connectivity. Aaron, if you're there, I want to invite you to speak to us. Having heard what Doctor talked about and the issue about air connectivity, which is your pet subject, how do we close the gap between the vision that SATEM has and the market reality that we are facing? Aaron, if you can help us answer that question, we'll appreciate. Over to you, Aaron Munetsi. All right. Good. So let's try and as we get connected to him, try. I'm told that he may have stepped aside a bit, but I wanted to speak to you, Iman Duri. We'll come to you as we try to align with Aaron. And maybe you want to talk to us about the distribution, airline distribution, NDC, and the role of travel agents in African aviation ecosystem. I want to bring you in, and maybe you can also chime in from what you've had, Dr. Kide to speak about. Iman, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. It's good afternoon for us here in Addis. Okay, so yes, what Dr. Kisitu was just talking about is basically at the heart of all our issues. This is a topic very dear to all of us. And I actually touch on a few things that are also getting in the way of ease of travel in Africa. So if you are ready, I can go to the slide. Okay, so I'll be talking about airline distribution, NDC, and the role of travel agents in Africa, and why commercialization, servicing, and settlement determines whether modernization actually makes travel easier. If we could go to the next slide. So travel in Africa is often slowed, not just by national regulations, protectionism, visas, airport structure, or lack of aircraft, but also by the distribution friction that the gaps between how airlines are creating offers, how those offers reach the market, and how they are serviced after sale, and then how payments and settlements move through the system. So here in Africa, our delays are coming from inconsistent content, weak servicing, and slow settlement workflows. The adoption of NDC is very slow due to smaller carriers, thinner IT budgets, and such bottlenecks are such frictions are creating bottlenecks in our continent. So modernization matters only if it reduces friction for the seller and for the traveler. Next slide, please. So NDC was designed to improve the connection between airlines, travel agencies, and the travel public. So in the past, the EDIFACT connection only offered X amount of content, but with NDC, we were supposed to be able to offer ancillaries, better bundles, better projects, faster time between what's actually available, and in other words, what seats the airlines have and what we see. And it was supposed to mirror an Amazon-like content. So offer an order management process. Airline has X seats available at X fares. Every single fare is available for travel agencies to sell, and thereby for clients to better access. Can we move on to the next slide? Because I'd rather just sort of make you see what's there rather than talk too much. So this is the line that NDC was supposed to solve. You shop, you compare, you book, you service, and then you settle as a travel agency. This is what you are supposed to offer to your clients. But fragmented content across channels is leading to switching, rechecking, and manual comparisons. The second issue is weak post-booking workflows make agencies hesitate even when the fares are technically available. And then difficult settlement rules, separate settlement rules, refund workflow issues, and Forex realities slow the final step of the whole experience. Next slide. So when airline direct channels show one set of products and agency channels show a different set of products, the comparison becomes messy. So when the airline website is showing richer ancillaries, direct bundles, and branded upsells, but the agency workflow does not show this, then what we can offer to our travelers becomes very different. So you start finding travelers going directly to airlines, some going to online ATAs, others coming to the travel agency, and everybody has a whole different experience. Then you have manual interventions that increase as customers go from one channel to the other. Response time from the travel agency stretches because you are comparing multiple views. You are not finding all of the NDC content in one spot. You're looking at airline X, airline Y, airline C, and your response time just becomes fairly messy. And on the other side, your client, your traveler, is experiencing this as a delay, as confusion, or limited choice. Next slide, please. So even after you get the bookings done, if your post-servicing servicing is weak, then travel agencies are going to hesitate to use that NDC channel. I'll give you an example. If airline X is asking you to go into their portal, but what you sell on that portal is not coming to your back office, you're going to prefer to stick to what you see on the GDS, thereby limiting the options that you can give to your client. Refunds don't get done properly, and you don't get that support during cancellations, delays, and reaccommodation. For example, what's currently happening in the Middle East. if you did those bookings directly with the airlines, you're going to have long waits. If you had been able to do it with travel agencies, you can get assisted quicker. If the travel agencies used an NDC channel, they may face delays because in processing these refunds because there are delays in the process itself. So a channel that only books but does not service well creates an operational risk for travel agencies and corporate buyers. Next slide. So why is transformation harder in Africa? Various factors. Forex issues in many countries on the continent that lead to partial implementation rather than a full distribution ecosystem. Partner support would be uneven across aggregators, agencies, and corporate tools, and therefore adoption slows when sellers cannot rely on consistent end-to-end workflow. 81% of airlines in Africa have less than 2 million travelers, 2 million passengers. 80% of airlines in Africa have less than 15 aircraft. So this basically means that you are depending on the big players on the continent to lead the aggregation of content. And if they don't work well with travel agencies, then all of this just becomes more of a bottleneck. Next slide. And then payment and settlement shaping the travel experience. Finance is not just a back office issue. It directly affects the speed and reliability of travel distribution. If your NDC content does not go to your back office, you are unable to get your payments out in good time from your clients. Apologies. So, for example, on the front end, you're going to have various different types of rules and regulations, various different types of payment acceptance, various different remittance cycles, various types of refund workflows, and then again, as I said, various Forex realities on the continent. So all of this ties together in reducing the adoption of NDC, in limiting what airlines and travel agencies can do together, and leaves us dependent on BSP, it leaves us dependent on BSP because that's the only way that we've got simplified transactions and payments between airlines and agents. Next slide. I'm going to share an example here for you. I am using Ethiopian Airlines mainly because they're the ones that have built this structure. So they have an NDC structure that's available continent-wide, and I believe globally as well. They saw this challenge coming. They saw their adoption rates of their NDC content slowing down. They looked at what it was. They realized that it was not just distribution, but payments and back office that was an issue. So they went and found a company that was selling a back office and mid office system that they could scale and use for their NDC clients. So now on the Ethiopian Airlines B2B distribution channel, you can get multiple payment options. Your back offices are integrated, your distribution, you get the direct content that Ethiopian Airlines offers, and then you can scale this up or down as your agency size moves up and down. This was implemented just this past January. And this is the model that airlines here, at least in Africa, should be following, because this is an access that looks at the reality of what is available in Africa. Looking at all the various different payment options, all the various different regulations, all of that gets incorporated into such an example. Next slide. So what a winning model looks like. So the strongest distribution model will modernize with travel sellers, in other words, with travel agencies, and does not exclude travel agencies from the program. Richer airline content, better offer quality goes into a workflow that uses travel agencies that have consultants that can look and compare all the different airlines that are available, that they can then scale up and down as their business models allow, and where they can have a reliable settlement process in place. If all of these four pieces come together, travel becomes easier to access, easier to service, and easier to settle. Next slide. Oh, okay, sorry. I guess I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you. This particular model basically says travel agencies are very, very important to the whole structure. They're the only ones that can get together the airline, the content, the payment, and any and all other services that are present, and put them all in one content for the traveler to see. You've got your seats from the airline, you've got your on the ground from hotels, from tour operators and the like. You've got your airports with their lounges, with their food services, with their airport transfers. All of this comes together only from a travel agency perspective. Whether you are online, offline, large or small, this is what travel agencies bring to the table. And if the NDC models that airlines are creating leaves travel agencies out, the customer loses. Because then they will continue to see fragmented choices that are not easy to put together. As Dr. Kisuthu said, if visa options were also freer, all of this, if e-visas were easy to get for all countries in Africa, travel agencies are where you can actually include that also into an NDC model. I hope I have given you a clearer picture of what the role of travel agencies are and could be in Africa with an NDC environment. I'm open to any questions and answers any questions you may have. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Iman. I think you've painted a very, very clear, picture to us around the opportunities, particularly around the distribution conversation. And I'm so sure that there are questions that people would like to ask, and those questions can be put on the chat. But I wanted us to look at the next presentation so that we'll have time for questions that will be put to you, all the speakers at the end, and we can have a much more inclusive conversation with the closing panel. And so for that reason is that if you have any question, please note it. You can also put it in the chat, but hold on to it so that I can bring in our last speaker for the day. And this is Captain Gilbert Kibe, Gilbert Kipe is well known, renowned on the continent. Is one of the biggest advocate of open skies on the continent and promotion of intra-Africa travel. And I just wanted him to make some quick intervention. Kibe, you've heard what Dr. Kidhitu has said, but of course you also have your own thoughts around how we can bridge the gap between certain ambition and execution. I know I have asked you that question, and I will continue to ask the question, why are we not realizing, these dreams that we've put to ourselves? Captain Kibe, perhaps if you could come on at this point, just to give a rebuttal or a response and share some thoughts around, certain.
Thank you very much, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Captain.
Okay. Thanks again. I would like to congratulate Chairman Kidhitu for having hit the nail on the head. What the issue is, what our problem is, and primarily this visa business, the free movement of persons protocol, which was one of the flagship projects of the African Union. Previously, I've spoken about 3 African Union flagship projects that are extremely important for the success of the air transport, air travel, tourism, trade, etc., in and around Africa among ourselves. So the free movement of person protocol is an extremely vital and important special project of the African Union, because we're looking at visa-free or visa on arrival entry for Africans within Africa. I prefer to say that it should be visa-free for all Africans traveling in Africa. So not necessarily visa on arrival. I don't see why an African needs a visa, whether it's on arrival or not, to come into or move around Africa to go and visit neighbors and other far-flung states. So this free movement of person protocol needs to be implemented and implemented as soon as possible. Dr. Kidhitu gave all the conditions that are required for that kind of a position or situation to work. We need to get away from these security fears about the concerns that we have and do not rely on visa revenue. A state should not rely on visa revenue. The more people you allow into your country, the more revenue your state will get. So in fact, you get so much more revenue than your visa revenue currently, because with your visa now, you're restricting the entry of persons in and out of your country. So I strongly believe that without a visa revenue consideration, free movement of persons
Do we lose you? Are we the ones lost? Captain, are you there? Okay. I think we lost Captain Kibe. I think we lost Captain Kibe.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we lost you there for a minute. Yeah, so maybe you can just, if he had made some statements.
Sorry, I had a faulty connection.
So just take it back a bit. We lost you there.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Sluggish, but yes, we can hear you.
Nick, can you hear?
Captain, I think we the connection is still not the best. If you're there, the connection is still not the best. You're doing very well until, okay. Maybe we can allow you just to see if you can reconnect back. Captain, I think we'll give you a.
So I've managed to reconnect. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Now that sounds better. Sounds better. Proceed.
Okay. All right. Okay. I really apologize for that. I had a connection problem where I am, but I think I have revived it now. So if I remember correctly, I was talking about this free movement of no requirement for visa among Africans. So we need, and Dr. Kiditu gave the direction of where we should go, including integrating immigration policies among Africans and allowing mobility among our regional economic communities, because we have the EAC, we have SADC, we have ECOWAS, we have the Arab Union up in the north. So if these RECs agreed on a policy where there should be no requirement for visa among its people, then we're looking at a much better and easier way of connecting Africans among Africans. But now, going to that question, Nick, that you asked, there's a gap between the SATAM vision and the reality on the ground. Now, SATAM, the Single Africa Air Transport Market, is the other flagship project of the African Union that I've spoken about before. And what SATAM it was created to do was to make Africa domestic to African airlines, so that wherever you fly in Africa, it should be a domestic flight and not an international flight. Now, what happens when you become domestic is that all government taxes, fees, and charges, which are right now very, very high, will be brought down to a domestic level. And domestic level will mean typically a reduction in those taxes, fees, and charges of around 90%. Now, what will that mean for the price of your ticket? If 60 to 70% of your ticket price is those taxes, fees, and charges, if those taxes were reduced by 90%, then you're talking about a tax structure that moves from $400 comes down to $40 or less. That means that the airline will be able to make the ticket price far much more cheaper and affordable for Africans to travel in Africa. So this is what my primary purpose is as a SATAM ambassador for the Eastern region, and that is to get the 14 states of this region, the East African Community, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Seychelles, and the other states around us, to agree to become domestic to each other. So that has been a challenge. So the reality is that we haven't yet implemented SATAM in the way that we would like. Now, yesterday, I received some news about the implementation of SATAM in Africa. It's not all bad. There has been some improvement. The GDP contribution around Africa in 2025 was an increase of $75 billion. 8 million jobs are being supported, and there was a trade increase of $2.8 billion. And tourism travel among us was at about 81 million. Now, that is good news. It's much more than we have experienced before. But still, on the political commitment in Africa, only 38 states have signed for SATAM. 26 of those states have signed the memorandum of implementation, and 21 of them are members of the SATAM pilot implementation program, which seeks to have 2-3 countries implement SATAM among themselves. That has not yet been very successful, but there has been improvement. So I would say it's not all bad news. There has been some improvement in the implementation of SATAM, but it still requires more work for African nations to agree to implement SATAM. So really, the only thing is for African governments to do what they are supposed to do, and that is in their legislation allow for free movement of persons, the single Africa air transport market, and also the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and agreement to be operational. These are African Union projects that have already been approved by all the African presidents and heads of state and government, and all it requires, therefore, is implementation. But what has stopped this implementation, in my view, is that the states don't fully understand the benefits of SATAM. So as our group, we're trying to go to each state to explain to the leadership of those states, that is the presidents, heads of state and government, all their ministers, etc., together with the stakeholders, airports, tour operators, travel agents. We sit them in one room and explain the benefits of SATAM in a simple way, and we think they will be able to implement it. So, Nick, that is what I can say at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Kibe, always insightful. I guess the biggest champion of SATAM, and we pray that this SATAM will become a reality. And what an opportunity, Captain. Maybe before I let you go, with what is happening in the Middle East, and almost a section of the continent stuck because our biggest corridor of leaving the continent is currently under siege. What a relief it would have been if we had created our own big, strong hub within the continent that then we wouldn't even feel the impact. Maybe just your quick thoughts there as I prepare Dr. Kithitu also to come in for us to have a quick conversation around what's next.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it has been a huge challenge in the Middle East, and the world's global airlines, Emirates, Qatar, and others are pretty much grounded. And that has had a huge impact globally on the movement of people who are traveling. But, in every challenge, there's an opportunity. And the opportunity is now that the airlines that do not operate through the Middle East can now take advantage of offering services using different hubs. You will find that the airlines are starting to report increased traffic, avoiding the Middle East, including Kenya Airways. Yesterday, they reported that their bookings have gone up to 100%, and they will have to add flights now because they are now getting increased business to their destinations like in Europe, in the United States, and also to the Far East, bypassing the Middle East. So for them, it has been an advantage. It's also an advantage for Ethiopian Airlines, and I believe other African carriers will benefit as well, utilizing this situation that has occurred, which is very, very unfortunate. And when the Middle East now comes back online, there's a good chance that some airlines will be able to retain at least 30 to 40% of the new business that they will have gained if they serve those routes well and have the correct pricing. But another example of a state that is going to have a huge benefit in this Middle East crisis, it's Ethiopia. Ethiopia has embarked on the $12.5 billion Bishoftu International Airport, with a capacity of 60 million in the first phase and 110 million in the second phase. Ethiopia has positioned itself in a huge way as Africa's global aviation hub. And I believe it will be a very, very successful program, because for the first time, people traveling from Latin America, North America, crossing over to China, Japan, the Middle East, the Far East, the Near East and the Far East, now have an alternative of connecting at Bishoftu in Ethiopia instead of going to Doha or Dubai. So I see that as a huge advantage to the Ethiopians, and I congratulate them greatly for that. So I think they'll take advantage of that. There are opportunities even in these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain, for those thoughts. And perhaps just maybe for equity purposes, as we now delve into the conversation, and I will open up the floor for the audience also to interact with you. Dr. Kivitu, your thoughts about the opportunities you see with the Middle East crisis for the continent?
Yeah, thank you. It's quite unfortunate, but it's always said you make money when there's blood in the street. Quite unfortunate, but in that kind of crisis, somebody can really come up and can do business. Sometimes we spend a lot of time on the floor trying to lament and all that, but I think airlines that are aligning themselves to opportunities, and now just Captain mentioned about KQ, talking at increasing capacity to routes that were not highly, having high what we call load factors. So really there is opportunity, not just to put our heads under the sand and say, oh, the world is coming to an end. Even we in the travel industry, we need to just give options to our clients. We need, even some people are flying to countries they have never flown into because they were all used to Nairobi, Dubai, or whichever country, Dubai, Qatar, and all that. So, but it's opening up other hubs. And, this morning I was discussing with somebody, if we hadn't gone through COVID, would be now, all of us would be really shaken down. But I think COVID shook us to the core. Now we are able to stand. So there is an opportunity as the issues get fixed. The travel trade should be able to sell and fix and get value in terms of, we are now being recognized, the travel trade, as a value in the chain. People have bought tickets online and they are flown without need of a travel agent. But now there is a clear need of a consulate in your travel plan. Again, in terms of the airspace, there is new destinations that are opening up, new hubs are coming up, facilities are being tested. So really, I think it's good to be tested, not in this way of death, but I think to be stretched. If we never knew if Kenya becomes a full hub and all the crafts are landing here, will our belts be able to sustain the bags and everything? Let things be tested. There's an opportunity in all these things, Nick.
Thank you very much, Doctor. When you talk about just dreaming wild, a friend of mine was telling me if we had followed through SATEM and all this fifth freedom, some of these airlines, Qatar and Emirates, some of them could have even temporarily moved their hubs onto the continent, so that instead of keeping their flights idle, they could still keep operations. That still remains debatable, but yeah, again, as you say, opportunities do come. Iman, from Ethiopia and where you sit, perhaps just another fair chance to you to make a comment. Are you seeing Addis busy? Is Iman there? She's left. Yeah. She's left. Iman, are you there? No. Okay. Iman seems to have left, but it would be interesting if she gave us a comment, from Ethiopia, what she's seeing on the ground, if flights are full or if, okay. So I think she's dropped. I think we'll now allow maybe 2 or 3 questions to our speakers based on the presentation that we've had today. If there's anyone from the floor, we can take another 5 minutes before we wind up. Any comment or question, from the conversations we have had today, I'll open the floor to you to make a comment. Feel free. But so far, I think we see that our biggest barrier to intra-Africa travel clearly remains high airfares, taxes and fees. Captain Kibe, are you surprised with this as we wait for questions?
Not at all. Not at all. This is the single biggest barrier there is to intra-Africa travel today. I'll give an example. Let's look at East Africa community. A ticket to Entebbe in Uganda, next door, it's a 50-minute flight. The cheapest ticket on economy is $600. 67% of the cost of that ticket is government taxes, fees, and charges. So that amounts to over $400 on a $600 ticket being taxes. So if you were to eradicate or remove the taxes that have nothing to do with air transport, and the ones that do have something to do with air transport, reduce them drastically by 90%, let's say, you could get maybe a tax of $40 instead of $400. What does that mean? That $600 ticket could become $250 overnight. When you have a $250 ticket, what does that mean for movement of persons? It means that it will now be far much more affordable to fly to our neighbor in Uganda. The same would apply to Tanzania because the airfares are around the same. Tanzania is only 1 hour, Dar es Salaam is only 1 hour away. And the same thing with when we go to South Sudan, a ticket today is $1,000 on economy, and the flight is 1.5 hours. It doesn't make sense. So if the tickets around East African community came down with the legacy carriers like Kenya Airways, Air Tanzania, Uganda Airlines, etc., if it came down to $250, then the low-cost carrier like Jambojet could produce a ticket of $100 or $150. What it will mean, the volume of traffic that will happen now among these countries around the East African community will increase so exponentially that in a very, very short period of time, the amount of revenue generated from that reduced tax will be far much greater than the amount of revenue that they're making today at a tax of $400. Therefore, it just makes sense to implement SATM, implement free movement of persons, and also implement the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, because even trade will become far much more affordable among us. So East African community, and then SADC, ECOWAS, etc. If we do that, all of Africa, we will be able to trade and travel among each other like we've never done before. And remember, we're 1.5 billion people in Africa. That is the hugest market in the world, and it is the new frontier of global development. Air transport will be the single largest enabler of economic development in all of Africa. Let's just implement these.
Yeah. And I think that answers questions, because sometimes I get government officials who ask me directly the question, where do you want us to get resources to be able to build the infrastructure, the air travel infrastructure? It is not cheap, it is expensive. and that money ought to be found somewhere. I guess that goes a long way to explain, that the taxes and fees alone will not build that infrastructure. But if we open up, then we are likely to generate more revenues far and beyond what we have that can help us build up that. Dr. Kithitu, there's a question that is directed to us here, and I guess on the chat, and it says, what exactly can we, or are we, AESATA and the Qatas, I believe the non-state actors, doing to positively influence government decisions into resolving these identified and outlined issues of frictions? Or what can we do aside from talking about it? And I think I hear where this we've talked about this. It's not new. What else can we do? Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's also said that a talk without proof is cheap. So we need to move our things to the next level. And as AESATA or Qatar or regional associations, one of the things that has been key has been engaging governments, who are basically the key drivers in terms of getting policies and implementations, especially when we talk about visas and issues around free movement. From where we sit, we've been lobbying the government. Remember, associations do exist for lobbying, and lobbying on the behalf of members. So we have, for example, we got into Kenya. We got a free visa-free e-visas and all that clearance done. At the association level, we had to do a lot of advocacy. We had to write a lot of letters to the minister. We had to meet the minister and explain the pain and the loss. And we told them, trust us, can you remove this visa and see whether the revenues will go down? And initially they were holding on visa is revenue, visa is creating security barriers. And the governments were able to listen and opened that, formed a committee that was able to basically review the regulations, the process of easing the visas. And today we speak, the numbers are almost doubling. They're growing faster than they were. So really, associations, we need to be at the center of the government core bodies. We need to be able to write papers. We need to be able to write to the ministers of tourism, be able to engage them in the forum, sit in the committees of the aviations, be able to be at the center of aviation discussion. If we are going to be sitting and speaking at the periphery, we will lose it. We need to be at the core. The government doesn't do business. The government only creates an enabler. We are the people in the business of travel and the trade in the hospitality industry. So we need to be able to speak. We need to be at the table. We need to look at what are the bodies that are engaging on travel matters. Who is there from our industry? Can we push? Can we lobby? So that when that happens, our voice starts becoming a meaningful voice. So that is the push. We all need to push and request each of you in different Ethiopia, Zambia, South Africa, whatever level you are, Zimbabwe, Malawi, whatever situation you are in Nigeria, please be at the center. Let people who don't do business make policies about you who do them.
Okay. Thank you very much. I guess we are coming to the end, but as we close, and I'll give both of you a chance to make your closing remarks. Captain Kibe, I've always used this opportunity to sound, just reflect on you. You've been in government, very high level of decision making in the industry. Maybe just your thoughts, besides the advocacy that we are doing, what else do you think? Which other doors do you think we need to knock harder so as we can be heard as a non-state actors in the industry? And as you make that, I think there's a very good question here from a listener who also wants us just to speak briefly what the outlook of travel is going to be, maybe a couple of both short and medium term, in view of the war that is happening in the Middle East. As your closing remarks, maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. For sure, with the rising fuel costs, travel will become more expensive. Therefore, overall traffic will definitely reduce. So it is our hope and prayer that the conflict is ended as soon as possible, even though all indications are talking about it being a very long-term thing. But let us pray that it will be a very, very short conflict and that it can be stopped as soon as possible, because it will have an adverse impact in our travel globally. And having said that, coming back to your question, how could you, as AESATA, you are travel agents, you are major stakeholders in the air transport industry. You still have a very, very high percentage of tickets being sold through you. Therefore, you are a very powerful ally to join us in this quest of ours to have SATAM implemented. So when I talk about these high-level meetings that we are trying to engage from presidential, head of state and government level, ministers and principal secretary, PSs, etc., the stakeholders should also be in that room as well. And that includes the airlines, the airports, the tour operators, the travel agents like yourselves, ground handlers, the entire scope of a sector in a country, including agricultural and mining, and all sectors should be on that table when we are explaining the benefits of SATAM implementation together with free movement of persons and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So as a closing remark, it is a prayer that we will be able to organize such forums at each stage around Africa to be able to convince governments to implement, because governments are the facilitators and they are the enablers. May they begin to enable those three flagship projects of the African Union, which they themselves have signed, SATAM, Free Movement of Person, and Africa Continental Free Trade Area. If we can implement them, Africa will be prosperous and the people will be happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Kibe, for your closing remarks and for a very strong, call for us to collaborate, work together. And I think that has been your clarion call through and through. Dr. Kithitu, maybe your closing remarks, and if you could speak to what travel agents should expect, both in the short and medium term, based on this war that is happening.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Nick, in terms of somebody speaking from clarity, because things are really fluid and changing. But I think some of us have been old enough to have seen a trend of inflation, especially this question asked about with the travel tickets going up, with the increased cost of travel, will the travel come down? I still remember the price of bread. If you all remember the inflation factor, the bread is just one of the basic commodities in life. And the price kept on moving. One time I thought it actually doubled. I thought people will not consume bread. But it was strange that people continue consuming bread. What does that mean? With increased cost of ticket, will people stop traveling? The answer will be no. But of course, there will be a dent into the pocket. But this increase can be short-lived or long-lived. Short-lived in terms of supply and demand. Remember the issues of the fuel energy going up, the fuel prices going up. Those are real, but we don't know to what extent. How can that be matched to the price increase? Maybe it was increased by $2 and they added 10. So, but it's supply and demand that will fix that equation. When the things come to the normal, there are enough options available for the travelers, then the providers will look at, are they pricing them properly? And that can cause the price to come down. Supply and demand at the moment is an issue of where is the next flight, not even how much. And then people can travel. So that means the demand is higher than the supply, and the price is a big issue in here. But looking at how the future looks like, Definitely when the prices go up, rarely do you see them coming down to the previously they were. So we need to prepare ourselves for that. There will be adjustment levels. I think just to answer on the travel trade, somebody told me that number one is fast and the first is number one. So number one is fast and the first is number one. We need to do number one. Just basic things are in the travel industry. We, the operators in the travel space, we need not just to continue lamenting, but we need to continue fixing our travel for our clients. We need to continue selling within the African continent and opportunities, encouraging travelers to travel, making ease of travel. Basically, we need to be in the space of enabling the travel. This is our space where bread is buttered. We shouldn't shy speaking about it. Agents, travel agents need to be at the core of making sure that they provide options to the clients. Airlines will need to continue providing options. We are seeing LCCs continue to increase, and that will make. I was telling one of the airline provider, why don't you go to look at Delta, the aircrafts they are using in moving people from New York to LA, or those long pipes. Bring them here, carry people along and charge $200-300, and they'll carry many people. Don't give them anything. Give them water or juice, and just make people move. So let us be the space of crafting solutions, especially in this space at this time round, so that our relevance and value can be continue to be ascertained. We no longer become travel agents, we are consulates, we are experts in travel. So that's a key for us. It's a proposition that has been built and created by the fact of happening. So for me, I see there is positivism, there is great growth, there is hope in the middle of all these things, so that travel will continue. It's mode of life, it's way of life. It's like eating. Even if prices were to be 3 times, people won't die. They will still eat probably small amounts. But let's lift our heads, keep our heads up, and we will make it together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Kithitu, for those closing remarks. And I like, I think you talk about the first is number one, and number one is first. That's a fascinating way to look at it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that will bring us to the close of our session. I think somebody asked us, why do we keep on doing this? Why do we keep on talking and talking and talking? Sometimes it is good to remind ourselves about the need for us to push. For the last 50 years, I think as a continent, we've been pushing for an ease on travel on the continent, across the continent. There are those that have had and they're implementing. So ours is to continue to advocate. We will continue to push. We will continue to remind our leaders, create infrastructure that allows us, to be able to travel across the continent. I want to thank you very much for your time. I think it's been about 2 hours that we have had this conversation. It does not end today. In July, I think end of May, end of June and early July, we are meeting in Livingstone as AESATA, bringing together travel agents from across the continent and others, so that we can continue with this conversation of pushing Africa. Our theme is Africa in Motion, and you may want to check us and join us in person, so that we can continue with the conversation around connecting Africa and promoting intra-Africa travel. 28th June to 1st of July in Livingstone, Zambia. Please join us there. Thank you very much, and I want to wish you a pleasant afternoon.